Hello and welcome to another lesson of quick and easy holiday cards. Today I wanted to do holiday cards that aren't Christmas based. So these will be for maybe friends who celebrate Hanukkah, or friends that just don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, or maybe they celebrate multiple holidays, so you want to encompass everything that they celebrate. So these are just more kind of neutral cards, and maybe even some snowflakes mixed in there to make it more of a happy winter card. So I hope you enjoy this lesson, and of course, if you go to my blog at brittaswiderski.com/shop, you can buy the PDF ebook along with a bonus card for each lesson video, and as well as an extra video bonus lesson. And you get to see all these lessons before anyone else does. So let's get started with the lesson. The first card I wanted to make is a Happy Hanukkah card. And I wanted to do kind of a paper pieced look across the card. It might end up looking like this actually, where the menorah goes in the center and then this gets cut in half and then is over here and here. So we're going to start out by stamping our menorah. This is from the Happy Hanukkah set from Lawn Fawn. I said I wouldn't be using any more stamp sets, but I realized that I just needed to throw this in here because it's such a great stamp set to have on hand. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this up with Jenny Bolin Spice Tin ink. And I think this navy color will go really, really well with the pattern paper that I've chose from the Nordic Holiday pattern paper pad. Alright, so we have our little menorah stamped, and that's super cute. And here's just a little tip for you. If you have something that doesn't exactly stamp perfectly in the middle, you can always go back in with a marker and go in over it. And this is a Memento marker. It's their Paris Dusk color, and it's just a little bit lighter than navy, and it blends in perfectly with the ink already because it's not darker than the ink. So we have that, and now it's looking absolutely perfect. And I'm just going to ink the edges with a foam tool that has a little bit of Spice Tin ink on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment with the same Spice Tin ink. And I'm also going to cut in, of course, a little banner edge because that's all the rage this year. So cut down the middle and then cut up to that point. And then I'm just going to ink around all the edges of my pieces here that will go on my card just to give it a nice unified look. Just to make things easier, I'm going to cut this piece of paper in half because I know I'm going to want it on either side of the menorah. And then all I have left to do is assemble it. So I'll speed this part up. And now I think this needs a little bit of corner rounding, so I'm just going to use the smaller setting on my corner rounder. Actually, I'm going to use the bigger setting. And then I'm also going to add some Stardust stickles just to the little flames of the candles here, just for a little bit of extra embellishment. And of course, this is optional, but I just wanted to add a little bit something extra. So here's our first finished card, and let's move on to number 2. So for our second card, I wanted to do some snowflakes with some distress ink in the background, kind of creating a watercolor effect. So I'm going to use this Frosties set from Lawn Fawn and stamp some snowflakes around this piece of watercolor paper that I've cut down to 5 inches by 3 1/4 inches. And I'm just going to stamp all over using various snowflakes in Versamark ink. And before I do that, I'm going to use my embossing buddy here from Inkadinkadoo. It's called Embossing Magic. And I'm going to go on the smooth side of the cardstock and just cover this with, it's a little release powder in here. And it'll just keep the embossing powder from sticking places that you don't want it to go. And then I can go ahead and stamp my snowflakes. So I'm just going to stamp these randomly all over the card in some Versamark ink. So now that I have my snowflakes stamped all over the card, I only stamped about 9 snowflakes because I didn't want the snowflakes to overlap. So I can always go back and add more after I'm done embossing, but I just wanted to double check and make sure I wasn't embossing over areas that I already embossed. So I'm going to add my embossing powder, and then I'm just going to use my heat gun to run over the embossing powder until it is completely melted. So now that I've embossed that first round of snowflakes, I'm just going to go back with another snowflake and emboss in the areas that need a little bit more visual, that need a few more snowflakes. So I'm just going to go around and fill in all of the areas that need something a little bit more. So now I'm just going to heat this again, embossing the snowflakes that I just stamped. Now that I have everything embossed on my card, I'm just going to go back in with some distress ink, and I'm going to take this tumbled glass distress ink directly to the paper just to get some color down. And you'll see it's not getting full coverage because the embossing is kind of keeping the pad away from the paper, but that's okay because we're going to go back in with some broken china distress ink and really get down into those areas. And then here is the fun part where you add in some faded jeans and just add it into certain areas of the card. It doesn't need to be precise or even very pretty, because trust me, once we add some pearlized water to all of this, it will look wonderful. So I'm even going to go back in and just really add on a ton of distress ink. This is some broken china. And I'm just adding on a lot so that the water has a lot to work with. So you see we have this nice variegated blue look here. And now I'm just going to take my perfect pearls and water, and I'm making sure it's nice and mixed up. And then I'm just going to spray the heck out of it until it's really runny. And I learned this technique from Jennifer McGuire, where she just really just puts a lot of water on it and lets it pool up all over the card. And it's going to look a little scary at first, but I promise it'll dry and it'll look wonderful. So just set this off to the side and let it dry for a little while. And you could of course use regular water for this, but pearlized water gives it a really shimmery effect, and it's really great for snow. So I'm just going to set this off to the side, and then we can get started on our third card while this dries. Okay, so for our third card, it's going to be a very simple sentiment-based card, and I'm using the same stamp set that we've been using throughout the entire card series. And I really love this Peace, Love, and Joy stamp because it's really great for cards that don't necessarily scream Christmas. So I've cut out 2 die-cut shapes, both from Label 16 from Spellbinders, and this is a really great way to cut out things if you're doing multiples of cards, because you'll get the exact same shape every single time, and these dies last for a very, very long time. And you just get a lot of mileage out of a simple piece of paper by making it look sophisticated. So I've cut out some pattern paper, and this is from the same pattern paper pad. It has these cute little doves on it. So I thought Peace, Love, and Joy would be the perfect sentiment to go along with this. So I'm going to stamp it onto my smaller white frame in some Spice Tin ink. And now I can go ahead and I'm just going to ink the edges just slightly on my piece here. I'm not even re-inking the tool. But this just adds a little bit of definition. And I'll also ink this base piece. And now we can adhere down our sentiment with some foam adhesive. And now I'm just going to adhere this down to my card front. Now, just for some extra elegance, I'm going to use this silk ribbon from May Arts. It's their SK03 1/4" silk ribbon, and I'm going to tie it around the bottom of the card. And I want the ribbon to go across the card right about here. So I'm going to mark it on the little seam with a pencil. And then I'm going to open up the card and use an X-Acto knife. And I'm just going to cut a little tiny square about the width of the ribbon on the back. And this way, when you look from the front of the card, you won't be able to see where the ribbon goes into the fold. But you'll be able to add ribbon to the front of your card, even though it's a vertical card. So I'll just erase these pencil marks. And you'll see when we close the card, you can't really see where the cut is. So I'm just going to add in my ribbon and then tie a bow right front and center here. And now I'm just going to center it right in the middle of the card. You can do this by grabbing the little center of the bow. And then just adjust it until it looks exactly how you want it. And then I like to put a little dab of glossy accents on top of it, because this will keep the bow from coming undone. And as long as you make the dot nice and round, it will dry nice and clear, and it'll just look like the little knot where the bow is just a little bit bigger. So it's perfect for sending cards, because you never know what the mail's gonna put it through. So here is our third card, and I think we just need to round the corners on this one as well. So now we can go back to our second card and put that together. So now my second card base has dried, and you can see it's just this gorgeous watercolor shiny wonderfulness that happened here. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere it down to my card, and I'm going to use some of my ATG just because I know this is really strong adhesive and it will hold this watercolor paper down to the card. Because there is, no matter how good of quality watercolor paper there is, there's always going to be a little bit of warping when you add a ton of water to watercolor paper. And by the way, I sped this up with my heat gun. After I let it dry for a few minutes, I just heat up all the little pools of ink that are left over, and you can even dab off some of the excess with a Kleenex, and that'll make it go a lot faster. So we have our wonderful card base here, and now we just need a sentiment. So I'm going to take this Let It Snow sentiment from the same set, Frosties, and I'm going to stamp it on this piece of cardstock that I cut down to about a 7/8 inch piece using my Tim Holtz ruler. And I'm just going to stamp it near the end here. And then I'm going to use my 1/8 inch corner rounder on the corners here, just to give it a nice little tiny rounded edge. And then I can go ahead and adhere this to my card, and I think I'm going to use some foam adhesive for this, but you can certainly use regular adhesive if you're planning on mailing this. And you can just trim off the excess. And I think this card just needs a little bit something extra, so I'm going to add a couple rhinestones from this Hero Hues Hero Arts rhinestone pack. And you can use any color rhinestones you have on hand, or probably the best option for cards that you're going to produce multiples of are to buy crystal pearls and then just color them with Copic markers or another alcohol-based marker, so like a Sharpie marker. And then you'll have colored pearls for your cards for way, way cheaper. So these just happen to be the perfect color, so that's what I'm going to use for this card. And then there we have our second card. So let's bring out all three of our cards. And you can see here we've created some really nice non-Christmas looks where you can send to friends and family who don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, or people who just aren't necessarily religious, or you want to send them something to celebrate the season. And of course, you could adopt any of the other cards for the series for any holiday, but I just wanted to give you a couple really good examples of Hanukkah cards and just peace and love and joy kind of cards. So I hope you enjoyed this video lesson and are looking forward to the next one. As always, there will be a bonus card for this lesson in particular, available with my ebook available at brittaswiderski.com/shop, and you can check out my website for more information. I hope you've really enjoyed this lesson, and I will catch you again next time on another quick and easy holiday cards tutorial.